The potential consequences for finding out the truth are escalating to new extremes. Hi, I'm Lazar Vujkovic, and this is To Kill a Mockingbird, Chapter 6 Analysis.
Alright, I say,
To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird. Let's start analyzing. To Kill a Mockingbird. Let's start analyzing. I'm Vujkovic Theolit. Vujkovic Theolit. So, a new character we're introduced to. Actually, two. Number one is Miss Rachel, and number two is Mr. Avery. Interesting. Now, my pointer stick is going to help me a lot right here. So, who's Miss Rachel? Miss Rachel is this kind person, and she allows the boys to play near her fish pool, but she's a bit irritable. For example, when she hears about the lie that they're actually going to do strip poker, well, this lie is interpreted as the truth for many. She gets really irritated and she's angry and she's like, why are you playing strip poker? I'm gonna strip poker you.
I was actually coming out here to pick up a cupcake.
But the thing about Miss Rachel is not much is revealed about her. She's a very minor and trivial character. So really, don't regard her as much. Just regard her as a character that's just in the story. Same with Mr. Avery. Mr. Avery is the second character that's introduced here. Another minor and trivial and unimportant character. Many of the important characters have already been introduced in the first 5 chapters. But I'm still going to talk about him. So Mr. Avery is this guy who's like, he's trying to be proper, but he's really humiliated. He kind of goes into this stereotype of the boring middle-aged man. And the reason why I say that is because he does some things every single Sunday. He always does something and he continues doing it. Very middle-aged man sort of thing, like that routine. But the thing about Mr. Avery is that although he's some sort of proper gentleman who does the same thing over and over again, as a middle-aged man, he has many quirks that middle-aged men simply have. One of the things is that he always sneezes at a certain time. He sneezes like when he comes out to the porch and he sneezes really loudly. And the funny thing is that he's humiliated about the sneeze. And then so he stops actually coming out onto the porch and doing the sneeze after some time because he's humiliated and embarrassed that people will notice him. A second thing that happens is that he's caught urinating somewhere near, I think, outside. And this is kind of another way that just makes him like very quirky. He's not some guy who's actually going to go to the restroom in the toilet. No, he's going to go outside and he's going to urinate for a considerable amount of distance. So clearly another character who's very unusual and strange. But that's Mr. Avery, that's Mr. Rachel. Let's get into the actual plot of Chapter 6. So Chapter 6 is really about going to new extremes. And the consequences, as I've already said, will be dastardly if someone finds out what really happened. It's all about what really happened and what they say happens. You see, it all starts out in the night. The weather is a complete foreshadowing device for this, which brings me to my 3 thought-provoking questions. Number 1, how does Harper Lee use foreshadowing in this chapter? Number 2, what are the potential reactions from the different characters in the story if they were to find out about the truth in regards to the Finding Boo Radley incident? And number 3, this is a moral question, so type your response in the comments below. When a guardian gives you advice, should you always follow it? If so, then why? If not, elaborate on the possible circumstances in which you should not follow a guardian's advice. Okay, so those are the 3 questions. And the first question is about foreshadowing, and it's straight out at the beginning of the chapter. It's also in the middle of the chapter and the end of the chapter. And although foreshadowing is a huge element in basically every single chapter in almost every single book, this chapter specifically employs it very well. And the reason why is because it's suspenseful. Anything that's suspenseful and mysterious always has that element of foreshadowing and foreboding. And here it also comes in order to hype up that mystery and suspense. So basically, there is this gigantic moon, and this gigantic moon covers a gigantic sun. So basically, what that means is that it used to be very hot outside. And whenever there's heat, heat symbolizes tension, right? You're always very tense when it's hot, you're sweating, and that kind of gives to that fear and terror feel. Another big thing that foreshadows that something bad's going to happen later in this chapter, and that's going to have to ultimately mean that they're going to tell the lie instead of telling the truth, is basically this idea of how everyone is just doing their own business. And so basically, there's no one outside. It is completely silent. I think that's Gem, or not Gem, but I think that Gem, exactly, Gem. They say, not a breath blowing, look a yonder. And what that means is that it's completely silent in the air. Now, whenever there is silence, okay, that means that something bad is going to happen. And the reason why silence is kind of giving that effect is because we're used to bustling, people just rushing from one side to another. We're used to a huge crowd of people, and then the absence of people indicates, okay, something's out of place. And if something's out of place, well, then let's just say something scary is going to happen, because everything happens in the quietest of times. Okay, we continue on. So we have all these weather elements, but they decide to go out anyway. They're like, you know what? What we want to do is we want to find Boo Radley. And the thing is, Atticus Finch gave Jem advice. He told you this is kind of invading question 3. So basically, they did not follow it, but I just want to know your perspective as well. So he gives him advice, and he says, okay, do not intrude on anyone's privacy, okay? Remember to stick to your own self. Do not go into anyone else's place. This was in chapter 5. This was in previous chapters as well. Especially in chapter 5, though, you would expect that they learn their lesson. But the thing is, Jem is very oblivious to his father's advice. Scout is not. Scout sticks to him kind of like peanut butter and jelly stick together. She understands him, and she really trusts him. She's kind of on her father's side. Jem is a little bit more rebellious, okay? He's a little bit more willing to go out of boundaries. And I think the reason why he does that is maybe to impress Dill Harris, because he knows that Dill Harris has morbid curiosity for this, and he's like, you know what? I'm not a coward. I'm not scared. I'm going to prove that I'm brave. So it's all about this inner mentality that you have to prove that you're brave to your friends. But the problem with trying to prove that you're brave and not being a coward means that you're not following your father's advice. And honestly, if they find out the truth, then that trust, it's gone. This is what I mean by number 2, the potential reactions from different characters. When they find out the truth, and I'll talk about the truth later, the trust is going to be gone. So what happens is they try to go and find Boo Radley, and they're just peeking around the Radley house. They go under this gate. Now the gate squeaks. Already more foreshadowing, because whenever there's a squeaky and creaky feel, you think that you're being in a haunted house. You get that feeling that, well, something is old, and that antique-y feel is very similar with Gothic vibes. Gothic vibes are just scary and frightening and chilling to the bone. That's really what I mean by foreshadowing. That foreshadows that something terrifying is going to happen. That's something that they will remember for the rest of their lives is going to happen. The squeaking. Not only the squeaking, they also have to find the maneuvering ways to get past this. Every second you feel like there's going to be a booby trap and they're going to be caught. But they're not. Or at least they're not so far. So they are able to spit on the fence, and somehow now they can crawl below it. It doesn't squeak anymore. Great. We move on to the next thing. Oh no, there are chickens. Chickens can get away in the way of the things, so they have to be cautious to avoid the chickens. And the chickens come, they cluck, 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 wakes up everyone. Ding, 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 ding. All right, so they're moving cautious. They're wary. They're looking from one window to another. Jem says, I'm going to look at the back window. Scout says no. Dill says no. When you hear two no's and you hear only one person going out alone, it indicates that everyone else is too scared to actually do it, which means one thing. That person who's going out there by himself, whenever you split ways, we never know what's going to happen to that person. After all horror movies, when people are not in a group, the person that's split away from the group sometimes no longer comes back. Of course, it's not like this, but we get very close to that idea of how Jem will be permanently gone. So Jem goes around the back trying to find Boo Radley. The reason why they want to find Boo Radley, it's all started back in like the very beginning. Dale Harris is just really fascinated with this idea of Boo Radley. Like, is Boo Radley really dead? Is he alive? I mean, there's so much about that. You know, we have neighborhood myths that say it's dead, but then Miss Maudie says it's alive. It's this mystery that surrounds the whole neighborhood. And so this is like, I want to find the answer to this mystery. But the thing is, they won't find it in this chapter. So although Jem Finch, she goes around, he goes down trying to find Boo Radley. Here's what happens. Nathan Radley, this is the older brother who took the place of his dad. So his dad died, dad of Boo Radley died. So the older brother of Boo Radley is now kind of like the owner or the leader of the house. He comes out and he starts looking around. Now Jem's like, oh God, what's going to happen to me? So then Jem tries to be as cautious as possible. And then once they get very close to meeting each other. So the older brother is around, like, I think 1 yard away from him. I don't know if they see each other or not, but it's really very like tense, and you're like, okay, what's gonna happen? Is he gonna like start shooting him? Is he gonna kill him? Because we know there's like violent motives involved with the Radley family. The Radley family has killed people with the scissors. There's a scissor incident. There's other stuff like that. Stuffed him in the chimney, locked him up with chains. So we're wondering, okay, if they do violence in this household, will they do any violence towards Jem? But I don't think he actually notices Jem, and so then he goes back to his own house. He thought that there was someone outside, then he realized that there isn't, and then they think that they're safe, but they realize, okay, we have to go out fast because he's going to start looking. So then they start sprinting out fast. They're like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done with trying to risk my life. I haven't found Boo Radley, but hey, Nathan Radley's up. He may come outside. So then they go out, and the thing is, Jem warned at the very beginning, be very cautious in the collared patch. Know where you're stepping. Don't try to run across it because they'll catch you. Step by step, step by step. And ultimately, man, that warning just comes back to haunt them. Because whenever someone gives you a warning, don't do this, you know they are going to do it. And that's exactly what happens. So we have Scout Finch. What happens is that she's frightened. So then she starts going really fast. And the problem with going fast, they try to escape it. The collared patch, it's rustling. What happens when you can hear the collared patch rustling? Well, Nathan Radley's like, oh no, someone's in my yard. Someone's in my backyard. And remember, you're not allowed to go into other people's backyard. This is private property. And also, since they are so protective of their house, Nathan Radley, for one, is because he never leaves his house. So he's kind of like with the house. And the reason why he never leaves his house, as I already said, to study the Bible. He doesn't want to spend entertainment times, right? He wants to be devoted to the Bible. And the only way he can do that is confined to his own house and like studying it, just like Boo Radley, like the whole Radley family just does that, right? And so this house they're very protective of the house, right? Because the house is basically, it's their home for the whole year, essentially, because even though they do go outside, it's for only 20 or 30 minutes just to get groceries. It's very, very little. They're almost quarantining in this house. So when someone's trying to step near that house, oh no, they are going to be protective. And what happens then is something very sudden. And all the foreshadowing led up to that point. He takes a shotgun and he starts shooting. The thing is, luckily, he never catches them. They just go fast. They go out the gate, and then they keep on going. But the thing about that shotgun is that you now know he will do anything if he finds out who went into his house. So that means if they find out the truth, oh boy, they are dead. They are completely dead because now he hates them. Now he's riled up and he wants to find the person who went into their backyard. But another big thing that happens is that Jem is trying to get out of the fence. Everyone else gets out of the fence, right? Dill gets out of the fence. You have Scout getting out of the fence. Jem, he can't get out. Okay, so what does he have to do? Well, he has to in order to get out, he has to his pants get stuck on the fence. So he needs to take off his pants and then go under the gate and to the schoolyard, because the schoolyard is a safety zone, right? No one can catch him in the schoolyard because no one knows what the schoolyard is. Like, the schoolyard's not really a place to suspect. It's not really near a lot of people. There's this very lonely oak out there, and it's kind of like that safe zone. So then in order to get to that safe zone, what he has to do is he has to take off his pants because his pants get stuck on the gate. And ultimately, now he's running around in his underwear. So he goes to that schoolyard oak. They rush back fast to their own house. But the thing is, now they're going to have to lie their asses off because they all heard the shot. The neighbors are all going to see what happened. So that was the first half of the story. Then we get into the second half of chapter 6, the interrogation. They rush back. They realize, okay, it looks suspicious if we don't attend, because if we don't attend, then it's going to look like we were the ones who did it. Like, after all, why would we not attend and everyone else would attend? So it has to be like this is a completely new thing to them, that they don't actually know who was in the garden. So they rush back fast as possible. They attend the neighbors and like, what happened? What happened? And then Miss Maudie's like, oh, he shot a black person. So that's kind of going back to the prejudice. I'm not going to say the word. We all know what the word is. I'm not going to say the word, but I'm going to say a black person and a white person. I'm not going to use any racial slurs. I don't think that's necessary or not necessary, but I don't think that I really should be able to say that. It also goes down to political correctness and whatnot, and I don't want to mess with that. I want to just analyze this book, okay? So the thing is, what happens is they think, okay, a black person did it. And it's like, oh, thank God, they haven't accused us. We're not the ones. But the interesting thing is there's dramatic irony. They're like, you know what? When he saw them, the black person turned so pale, he was almost white. It's funny because they were white all along, and yet they think it was a black person who turns pale and becomes white. So they know something that the others do not. Now, this could be dramatic irony, or this could just be like them just like exaggerating their paleness, of the pallor, just like of how scared they were of the shotgun. I don't know if it's dramatic irony or not, but really what it's trying to say is these people are absolutely traumatized that they were almost shot. I mean, who wouldn't be traumatized? If you were close to death, that close, would you be scared? I would be fucking scared, guys. Okay? And so that's what I'm trying to say. They are all really traumatized. This is the last day of the summer, and oh boy, it is definitely the last day. Now, the thing is, Jem, he doesn't have his shorts. Now, he can't say that he lost them on the fence, because then they're going to know, oh, they were the guys who went into the backyard. And if they know that, well, Atticus Finch will be angry because he disrespected his advice about letting everyone have their own private property, about not intruding on people's personal space. And then not only that, Nathan Radley will be very angry. And the reason why Nathan Radley will be angry is because, Nathan Radley hates those people who intrude into his personal space. He's very protective of his space because this is essentially his own home. He lives here for the entire day, basically. And so both people will be angry, and that can lead to the possible consequences. As I've said, Atticus Finch will say, I told you this. I gave you this advice, and you didn't listen to me. I'm going to beat you. So he's going to beat Jem Finch. Because Jem Finch is the most mature one, and so basically Jem Finch will get all the blame, right? The other people are just the people who follow along with his plan. He's not going to really be that mean to Scout. He's not going to be that mean to Dill. He's going to be mean to Jem Finch. Let's be honest here. And also, it's his shorts. So, they can probably lie their asses off, but Jem Finch can't. Jem Finch, oh no, if they say, oh, Jem Finch's shorts are over there, well, then we know Jem Finch was definitely involved in the whole plan, and Jem Finch will have his ass whooped. But a second thing, as I've said, Mr. Radley will now view them in worse ways. It's like, oh, are you intruding on my personal space? Well, guess what? I'm going to be warring with my shotgun. And ultimately, he may decide to kill them one day because of his anger. Or at least he won't view them in a good light. And that can ultimately escalate to their death. After all, we don't really know much about the Radley situation. We don't know if the Radleys are violent or if they're not, because it's all shrouded in neighborhood gossip. So what the Radleys are going to do, their character motives, it can go in so many different directions that they don't even want that to be a possibility. So in order to ensure that these directions don't actually happen, to ensure that there is not even a small possibility that they're going to die or the worst case scenario is going to happen, all they can do is lie their asses off. So what they say is, oh, we were playing strip poker, right? So basically, strip poker is you win, you take the other person's clothes. You lose, you have to take off clothes. And that's basically where Dill Harris is like, oh, yeah. So I won the game, so I told him to take off his shorts. I got his shorts. And everyone's fine with that. Of course, Miss Rachel's a little bit angry because it's in her fish pool. But, Atticus Finch, he tries to be a little bit nicer. He's like, you know what? It's not a big deal. It's just a thing that all boys go through at their age. And I realized one thing. Atticus Finch is a lot kinder to his guests, like Dill Finch versus not Dill Finch, Dill Harris, than his daughter and his son. And the reason why, I think, is because of this idea of Southern hospitality. He treats his guests as if it's normal. He's like, oh, okay, I understand. Thank you. And the reason why is because he doesn't want to, be upsetting to his guests. He doesn't want to be mean to his guests because, he realizes that Dill Harris, he doesn't know his maturity. He doesn't know anything about him. So he's like, you know what? It's not a big deal. He'll ration. He'll be reasonable with them. But on the other side of the room, basically, we got Jem Finch and Dill Finch. Now, Jem Finch and Scout Finch. And the thing is, Jem Finch and Scout Finch are specifically raised by Atticus Finch. And because they're raised by him, he's like, okay, well, if you're not following what I asked you, if you're not following how I raised you, I am not going to be happy with you because I specifically raised you to not do this, and yet you're doing it. So clearly, he's going to treat his children much, much harder, much, much harsher than he would treat Dill Harris, because Dill Harris is not under his responsibility. But on the other hand, Jem Finch and Scout Finch are, and because of that, right, they get harsher treatment. It's more about he gives them more advice. He says, you know what? Look at it from the other person's perspective. That's the whole thing, right? He cares more about making sure that they're not spoiled, that they get justice, that they realize what is meant to be, what is good and what is bad. He does not want them ever to think that they can go above the law. That basically gets a wrap for that whole thing. I just wanted you to know that Dill Harris's summer ended in a spectacle. Dill Harris is now going back home. They're happy that they were with him, and he's just going bye-bye. But as you all know, it was a very scary thing. What could happen? The consequences of finding the truth are unreal. Luckily, though, Jem did get his shorts back. He did go at the night. So he went at the night. He got his shorts back at 2 a.m. Atticus Finch did not know. There was a lot of Scout was very paranoid that Atticus would find out because Atticus usually checks on them. Scout was also paranoid that Jem might not actually survive because, after all, now we have the Radleys. They have loaded up their second barrel, and they will fire at whatever comes into their garden. Right now, he's more alert, more aware. After one person has already been rustling in his garden, well, he's going to be more aware, and therefore there's a bigger chance that Jem Finch won't make it out alive. But he gets his shorts back, and because he gets his shorts back, he will not be beat by Atticus Finch. And the reason why is because then it shows that he wasn't there in the first place. And if he's able to cover that story that he wasn't there, well, my friends, only then could Atticus Finch believe the idea that the person who was there was not them. And if that is the case, well, then the strip poker story checks out. Their alibis are solid. And all the evidence of them ever not following Atticus's advice and intruding on people's private property is wiped off as if it was never there in the first place. The only thing is, Atticus Finch is a lawyer. He can find out anything. And as always, Theolids, thanks for reading. Don't forget to subscribe for more content, and remember to comment down below on the moral question that I posed for today.